All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 27 of BenThere. I've got a good one for you today, as always. But before we get into that, I want to make sure everybody. First of all, I got to say thank you. This is episode 27. I never thought these would go past 5, so this has been a treat. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday night. Ready for the week, winding the week down, however you want to view it. But this is a show about people. This season specifically, it's been a show about third culture kids, TCKs. We've got one, one of the most popular ones, I should say, because this is not his first rodeo on being interviewed. So I can't wait to get to this. But Mr. Pablo Troncoso, I hope I said that right, brother.
Yep.
Yeah, he and I have chatted a little bit before, but he's a good one, and he's got a lot of knowledge, and I can't wait to talk about just life in general with this guy. So without further ado, Pablo, welcome to the show, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure knowing what you're doing, knowing the lives that you're helping, the people that you're bringing this awareness to of the things that us as TCKs that we struggle with, and also the things that we just love to just bring it to the forefront, man, on a show like this. And I appreciate you taking your role and just stepping up and doing something positive, especially during these times. So
thank you. No, I appreciate that. You and I talked beforehand. I mean, this is fun for me. This is therapeutic for me. So this of all the stress in regular life, this is actually the easy part, right? So
right on.
It's kind of fun to do this. But I always like to start these off by just having the guests kind of talk about themselves. You get to brag a little bit, as you should. But just if you don't mind, talk to the viewers. I mean, there's people watching that are watching on Facebook. There's people watching on YouTube. By the way, if you are on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe. I had to throw that plug in real quick. But then there's also people that are going to see this maybe a week from now, on my BenThere.org, or just maybe flipping through Facebook, flipping through YouTube. I want to make sure they get your life story, man. So you are similar to me in many ways, and yet there we go. Right? I like it. But very different in a lot of ways too. So just if you don't mind, if you could just kind of talk about, summarize your upbringing, who you are, where you're from, all that fun stuff, how you ended up overseas and became a TCK. So it is all you, man.
Hey, man, absolutely. You know what's great about talking to other TCKs, especially people that are genuinely interested in. Tell me a little bit about yourself, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when you're at a party. And somehow we have, like TCKs, we have this radar about us where we can pick out people and we can go right up to them and we can just start a conversation. And before you know it, 5 hours have gone by and you've literally just spoken to that one person, but you feel like you've discovered the world again. And that's kind of what I'm excited for today's talk, man. So I'm with you. But real quick, just about myself. And, it's so funny. I'm kind of like you, right? I'm on a show where I'm usually the one asking the question.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that later too. So yeah.
And so it's interesting to have to be on the other side of the turntables. No, for me, I'm a TCK. And it's something that I didn't find out about till maybe 5 years ago. But I describe it as by the age of 16, I had lived in 6 countries on 4 continents and spoke 3.5 languages. And I'm joking, but I'm serious when I say, I can barely speak 2 of them at this point. It's so, I'm originally from Argentina.
Okay.
And so I'd only lived there about a month and a half, after I was born. Mm-hmm. And my mother, who, she wasn't like this big time international espionage person or anything like that. She just had a dream of discovering the world. And she got on a flight and we left to Europe, moved all around Europe. I lived in Greece, lived in Italy. Oh, wow. Eventually she settled, her and I settled down, right? Her and my real father, biological father, never married. She ended up marrying my stepfather, who they are no longer together, but he was in the U.S. military, mm-hmm. stationed in Greece at the time. And so my brother was born in Athens, and man, after that, I mean, we were already traveling. Now we were just like, traveling even more. And so we lived all over, man. In 87, we moved to, or in 86 rather, we moved to the States. Yep. Lived all over the West Coast, Washington State, California, Texas. Then all of a sudden one day, we find ourselves in Natsuki, Japan. right, for 3 years.
And now you're speaking my language. Asia's
Hey,
my
brother.
language.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, you know,
sure.
I walk out the front door
Yeah.
of my house and I could see Mount Fuji. You know, and so we moved back. You know, my stepfather was then stationed out here in Maryland, close to Fort Meade with NSA and the like there. And you know, I finally stay somewhere longer than 3 years, and I'm excited, right? I'm in high school at this point, mind you, and somewhere 5.5 years. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I actually have friends that, you know, I remember who they are, and 2 weeks into my senior year, Ben, we get stationed again. 2 weeks into my senior year,
Wow.
we were supposed to move to Maine, Brunswick, Maine. Yeah. And all of a sudden he comes back like a week later, and I was like, that's not so bad. At least it's still the East Coast. He's like, no, not Maine, Spain.
Oh no.
And so we had to jump across the puddle again. And listen, I'm not complaining now. I definitely was kicking and screaming then. Yeah. So we lived in Spain. I graduated there when like a class of 45 seniors. And you know, K through 12. It was called DGF, David Glasgow Farragut High School in a little town called Rota, Spain. Rota, for my españolas. And it was literally right on the water. It was right on the southern tip of the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. So again, right, it was one of those open the door and there's the ocean, you know, beautiful view again. And listen, it's funny because, right, as TCKs, we don't have to explain this, but anyone who's not a TCK that's watching this, it wasn't like a lifestyle of luxury, right? Again, my mother, you know, she moved literally to get away from family, as I had, you know, just was along for the ride. And then when she married my stepfather, you know, he was young. He was 23 years old, enlisted in the military. That means he was making like 25 grand a year. You know, for a family of 5, that's not, you know, international luxury lifestyle. No. We just happen to be very fortunate in like where we landed in some of these places, which again, I think is part of what makes us who we are. So that's, you know, fast forward, you know, after I graduated high school, that was when my parents divorced. I ended up moving back to Maryland, right, which is the place that I had lived the longest. And that was primarily why, because also they, you know, my parents still had a house here that was being rented. And so at least we were going to have a place. And so we kind of ended up here. This became essentially our home base, right? I lived on bases throughout my whole life. And now all of a sudden, this was home base. You know, I'm wearing the jersey. It's, you know, Argentina, I'm a huge soccer fan. This is an old jersey, but I love soccer. Love it so much, right? So moving to Spain was like, you know, moving to ESPN. If you love sports. And but the funny thing is, right, even though I love soccer and I love Argentina, man, I root for Argentina like I've gone to war for them. I don't know anything about Argentina. You know, like I really don't. I mean, I know some of the stuff. I know stuff, you know, enough to get around really good conversations around, you know, wine and food and entertainment. But I don't have the accent, you know, my family, I have family there, but not family that I had stayed in touch with. So anyway, all that to say is that, you know, I'm a wild card, man. I could walk into a party and people are like, where are you from? And I'm like, well, where do you need me to be from? Because I just want to fit in, right? You get it.
I wish I could say I didn't understand that at all, but 100% can appreciate that. We'll talk about that later, but keep going, man.
So, yeah, so here we are. You know, so we settled down in Maryland. And again, at the time I was just out of high school, right? So I went to school here. You know, I went to college out here, a small college called Towson University, to stay close to, you know, mom and my younger brother and sister to help out. And then after I graduated college, man, I had the bug to move. I had the bug to move, but I actually, what I did was I traveled around a lot. I stayed locally. I started a business. I started a mortgage company back in the day. And then, you know, built a really awesome company. And then, you know, about 6 years later, it kind of crashed and burned with the whole market and the economy in 08, 09. But then it, like, I had that desire to travel. So I literally moved from here. I didn't go international. I stayed in the States, because financially I couldn't really do some of the things I really want to do. But I lived in some pretty awesome places on a low to no budget. I'm telling you, because I lost everything. So I lived in Austin. Texas for about a year. I
Great
lived
place.
in Vieques, Puerto Rico, which is an island 6 miles off the eastern coast of Puerto Rico. There, I lived there for a year. Opened up an amazing, beautiful hotel. That's how I got to move to Austin. Did the same thing there. Then they wanted me to move to LA because I wanted to get into sports and entertainment. I said, I'm done with the I'm done with the hospitality industry.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up working for Major League Soccer out in LA for about 4 years, which was incredible. I loved Southern California. People that are like, there's nothing in LA. I'm like, dude, you're just not looking hard enough. And again, maybe that's just part of how we are.
Yeah.
We can find what we need where we're at. And then eventually, I just got to a point where I was like, man, I turn around and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm 35 years old. Like, and I'm still like living solo in a small, tiny 1-bedroom apartment, 3 blocks from the beach, which sounds cool. But I'm like, man, I want to settle down. I would love to start a business again. And so I remember, I packed up my car. If it didn't fit in my car, man, I gave it away or I sold it.
Yeah.
And literally, like, I remember walking out of my apartment, right? This tiny little, like, I'll watch my language, but this little crap hole, walking out in Long Beach, right? Which was like 3 blocks away from the beach. Again, very fortunate, but like only $800 a month. So imagine what $800 gets you in LA.
Yeah, especially in Long Beach. Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about downtown LA, like Snoop Dogg, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember walking out, and one of the last things I have is this jar of coins. Like, this is obviously a mason jar of water, but was this jar of coins. And I don't know, it might've been like maybe $30 or $40 in change or something. And it was literally the last thing that I had, right? That I'm walking into my car with. And sure enough, around the corner, right, we had a lot of homeless people in LA, and certainly in that part of downtown where I was, this homeless guy comes up to me. And I never really interacted with any homeless, right? I wasn't this guy that gave, spare change or anything like that. We didn't, again, everywhere we lived, we didn't have like homeless people that were like in and around us, especially on a military base.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that this guy was like, literally asked me, he says, do you have any spare change? And I'm kind of like,
do you?
I gotta say no. and then something just hit me. It was like, you know what? You need to close this chapter in your life. And dude, like, that was, what was great is that was me being able to make a decision of where I was going to move to, kind of when and why I wanted to, as opposed to always being pulled somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I just said, hey man, here you go. Bless you, stay blessed. Like, have a great day. I don't know how much is there. It's yours. And he just kind of looked at me like dumbfounded, and I just kind of walked off. And I remember just leaving, and the horizon of like Southern California and the sun going down as I'm driving further and further away across country. I just remember being like sad, but like happy, man. And it was the first time in any move that I'd ever done that I actually felt like that. So that brought me back to Maryland. This is where I've been, just outside of DC, in a small town called Ellicott City, Maryland. And I love it here, man. I mean, I came down to 2 things I wanted to accomplish, was start a business and settle down. Within a year and a half of moving back, I had a successful business built, again, in financial services, which is what I had done prior, which I no longer do now. I do something completely different. And then also I'd reconnected with a wonderful woman that, of all people, my mother introduced me to, right? Nice. And they worked at Hopkins International, right? Okay. So you keep the cross culture TCK thing going. And we were married a year later. And so here I am now, man. It's me, it's her, it's my 2.5-year-old son, it's our 5-month-old daughter. Things are crazy. It's not perfect, not even close. Yeah. But man, for me, it's pretty damn perfect. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
That's kind of where we're at, man. And I think it's really all about where you find yourself and what you make of where you want to be. That's what I see as home, right? I know a lot of us talk about where is home.
Well, that was my next question. And before we get into that, I love what you just said, because let's look, we both got lucky. We married the right ladies. We waited a long time. I was later in life too, man. But they're with the weight, and they kind of, they have an uncanny way of putting everything into perspective, right? So
Yeah.
they make you better, and they make you want to work harder, and they want to make, it's just, it fits for people like us that have been misfits, right? For so many years, right? And I appreciated what you said. Earlier you were talking about just trying to blend in somewhere. I spent 20 plus years back in the States trying to blend in somewhere. And yeah, I loved your home base comment too. Like, that's what Utah is to me. I've said this many times. I'm not from here. I never really thought of this as home. But it was where I would always come back to in the summertime. My grandparents lived here.
It's so funny.
Yeah. And my mom and my parents bought a house here, and things happen. Life happens. My dad passed. My mom stayed. So she's here now, and health-wise, it's a big part of why I'm back here. But my wife's from here, so it all works out. It all balances out. Yeah. But it's interesting when you so much of your story, I was just sitting back and letting you talk, because I could sit there like, yep, check. I could relate to so much of that, man. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about home, the concept of home. I know you were about to talk about that, but you've been all over the world: Greece, Italy, born in Argentina. Back in the States, you've been all over the world. Let's talk about that concept of home. I was going to ask you where home is, and I think you were about to get to the concept.
Sure.
So I'm going to let you go with this right now, but let's talk about, especially for us TCKs that always feel so homeless sometimes, even with the home base. Like I said, you've got your home base, I've got my home base.
Home base is it's funny, because it's like, I still to this day, like when somebody's like, so where are you from? Like I'm my quick response is, well, I'm just like, I was born in Argentina, but I grew up a TCK. And so now I live in Maryland. And unless they're like, wow, that's cool, what is it? It's kind of like you and I were talking about, right? If someone's actually engaged and interested, then great. Hey, listen, we'll talk about it a little bit more, and maybe there's a reason you're interested, right? Maybe, and that's cool, because I want to meet people like that. But there's no, like, even Maryland being a home base right now, let's talk about family real quick. I mean, you talked about the reason why it works for you now.
Yeah.
Right now, for me, it's literally, it's me, my wife, our kids. She's got a cousin that lives like close, like maybe 30 minutes away. And then my mother lives like 30 minutes away.
Okay. Same.
So like, that's it. So my point in saying that is, we've got family and things going on around the world.
Yeah.
And you believe me, like, we have conversations around, well, if that's where you want to move to, let's figure it out. There's no loyalty here, right? We're not like a franchise player that's like, I'm not Cal Ripken. Right? No one really does that anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But again, Cal Ripken, wasn't born and raised the TCK. If he was, I bet you he would have played all over the league.
He traveled all over the States. I've done my homework on Cal as a baseball guy, but he was overseas. Right. They would go down in the summers, and then in the winter, the winter time, they go down to like the Dominican Republic in South America. But still not the same. They spent like a couple of weeks there, not years there.
For training, right. It's funny, actually, where I lived in Vieques, there was a part on the northern side of the island called Bravos de Boston. And I was like, well, I know what that means, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would this part of town be called, the Boston Braves? And then when I met one of the locals, and he was telling me, he was like, well, when the Boston Braves would come down and train in Puerto Rico, during spring training, they would actually stay in this part of the island when they would come visit, right? This part of the, this part. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And it was such a thing, right? I mean, we're talking about a third world little island that's beautiful, but super underdeveloped. But they had, a really nice, rich kind of community of homes and businesses that the Braves would just eat up, like, and they loved it, and everyone would thrive there. So just a little baseball connection for you.
Love it. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as home goes, man, I'm telling you, there's no true like loyalty to like just where my my shoes are at, when I enter the house. If my shoes are at the door, dude, that's just where they are until I put them on and I walk back out. I'd love to live in Spain again, man. I'd love to go back. I mean, right now my wife has, her twin brother and one of her older brothers lives lives there with their kids and, and their wives and their kids. And she's like, well, why can't we be with them? And I'm like, well, it's not so much of a, like, we just are choosing not to. It's like, part of it's financial. Obviously, part of it's now with the crisis and, where you can travel and not travel. And not only that, they live in Mallorca, which is, it's like the Lake Tahoe of
I was going to say, that's a little bling bling. Yeah.
It's a little bling bling. But anyway, there's, for us, home is, we're really ready to just, it's more of a destination of where we want to get to continually as we're growing and changing, as opposed to where we want to end up at, right? Because if you look at, like, when people have goals and they want to be successful, I kind of look at it like that, because people, it's said that success is really the realization of a worthy ideal, right? Success means that it's realizing that you're getting to the next place, and then realize you have another place to go beyond that.
Yeah.
Right. And so kind of, I just hope that in all of it, that we can keep our sanity and grow together. And, and trust me, like, as TCKs, we have our issues, right? We definitely.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't mean to cut you off, but what you just said pretty much sums up us TCKs, right?
Yeah.
We're in 1 minute, we're in one moment of our lives, but we're always thinking about the next, right? We're always thinking about that next move, that next concept, that next job, that next everything. So, yeah.
Well, but that within itself is part of my argument, my case for TCKs, in why, I truly believe that they make the most remarkable employees and business owners. Because it's someone who's always forward thinking, who's always, like, if I had to guess, I would have been like Steve Jobs was a TCK, but he, I don't think he ever left, Simi Valley, or Silicon Valley or wherever. But he, it's this idea that we're always 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead. And I think that's because, again, if you look at how we grow up, we're always knowing that this next place probably isn't forever. So we try to enjoy it, but it's almost like, I know PlayStation is coming out with, the next version of FIFA. So I'm going to love this one, but man, I can't wait to see what that next one looks like. That's totally. Which is another reason why maybe guys like you and I, we wait so long to get married.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's got to be like the perfect person. And then we realize, oh, it's not a perfect person. It's literally, it's us letting go of ourselves and saying, hey, whoever is put in front of us that is the right person that can love us in the way that we are, man, that's when life. And so I'm telling you, you said that your wife was definitely, you marrying up. For me, my wife was definitely marrying up. Okay. And because I'd have these conversations with her, and it's like, hey, this is kind of how I am. Like, are you sure you're cool with that?
Yeah.
This is kind of, I don't have traditions. I don't have, let's go back home and see the family. Like, I don't have that stuff. I don't know my family like she know, man, it's her and like 5 brothers.
Yeah. Wow.
So trust me, like,
she's the only girl.
Yeah, she's the only girl, right? One of the twins.
You're brave, man. You're brave. My wife. The funny thing is, my wife is she's got 2 brothers, so I'm in your same boat, man. So I get that.
But the approval process, right? Yeah. To a Latin family to go through that. Yeah. That's a whole nother story, man. But but she was like, you know what? She was just willing. She was crazy enough to give it a shot, and it's just been working out pretty awesome. But yeah, it's but we got to be open with it, man. I mean, that's the other part. And just like I said, whether you're talking to a stranger, and they're like, hey man, so where are you from? I'll tell them straight up. I'm like, I'm a third culture kid. I just happen to live here. And they're like, man, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Or they're like,
so much of what you're saying. I feel like it's somebody saying my story right now. So I love it, man. I love that you can relate and I can relate right back. So it's
yeah, man.
I love that. No, appreciate the honesty and the transparency. But let's dive right into it, man. Let's get going then. So let's talk about the positives and negatives, because there are, you talked about this earlier. You hinted at it. There are issues about being a TCK as well. It's not all unicorns and rainbows and life is just awesome. There are some deep issues with growing up the way we did too. But there's 100 some plus positives about growing up the way we did as well. So if you don't mind, talk about the positives and negatives of growing up the way we did.
Well, dude, like TCK, I get to meet awesome guys like you, right? Yeah. And I'll just start with a quick positive, but then I do want to get the kind of some of the ugly stuff out of the way.
Because there are things that are fun. Yeah.
But I think that without a doubt, one of the cool pluses is that, man, we can just be pin dropped anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I have a mentor of mine who says, you can put me in any country in the world where I don't even speak the language. Right? There's a business mentor. Any country in the world where I don't speak the language, and I can within 1 year be a millionaire in that country.
Wow.
Okay. He's not TCK.
Yeah.
But I kind of look at it like a TCK, actually like that, where we can be dropped anywhere, any part of the world, not speak the language, not know anyone, and then literally have like a tribe of friends that we're like, hey man, these are my brothers, these are my sisters, like, right? This is mi familia, right? We can do that anywhere, and that's what I think is pretty cool. I'm trying to think back. I'm like, how did we even meet? It wasn't like super long ago, maybe a couple years ago. Do you remember?
January-ish, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Do you remember how?
We both have that connection through Calvin, and I may have reached out to you just because I was curious about your business.
That's probably what it was. Yeah. Another TCK.
Real quick shout out to Calvin who got this all started. So.
What's up, man?
Yeah.
So but that was the whole idea, man. I think that's an awesome thing, right? Which is why a guy like me bartended, through college. If I wasn't a TCK, because truly I'm kind of an introvert. Yeah. And so people don't think that, right? Because they're like, oh man, you can go up and talk to anybody. I'm like, you don't understand, like we have to.
Yeah.
It was once said that those that don't adapt with times are soon to be left behind. And the ones that are constantly learning are the ones that are going to own the future. Right. And truly, like for me, adapting is really, it's just continually communicating. Because you think about adapting, all adapting is learning what's new and what's different and then changing with it. But truly, the simple essence of that is communication. You only find out what's changing and what's new and what's different and what needs to be changed by actually communication. Yeah. And so I just look at it like us constantly having to speak to people and learn about others and ourselves in order to survive, and not only survive, but to thrive in the future. So, I look at some of the things that I suffered through. Definitely, the loneliness. I'll just say right off the bat. When I didn't discover this until I lost my business, right? I had multiple businesses throughout my career, but my first business, right, that I had built up and it was successful. And granted, remember I told you we didn't grow up like luxurious. We grew up poor, right? I just didn't know it, right? Because
my dad was self-employed even though we were overseas, so we didn't have all the perks that a lot of people did. So I totally understand. We moved to Hong Kong. He was with the McDonald's, the restaurant corporation, the business side of that, but then he left them. And when we moved to Taipei and the significant chunk of my childhood, he was self-employed. So I'm with you, man.
Wow.
We didn't have the bells and whistles that a lot of kids did. So I get that.
Well, it's funny because we say, I mentioned how much my family, my stepfather had earned. We always say we were grateful for base housing.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. And the base housing, wasn't like a penthouse, but, growing up, and I'll go back to another baseball story, man. Where I think I got my first kind of hint at loneliness, but didn't realize what it was. And this was in high school. So, I was just outside of our locker room and it was my freshman year, getting ready to start. I was just outside of the locker room and I was waiting to see, like, they were posting like the final cuts for the baseball team. And I played baseball for maybe the previous 5 years. I'd started playing in Japan. I loved it, man. I knew every stat. I grew up watching in the late 80s, early 90s. And so, man, I loved everyone, like Wade Boggs, Eckersley. I mean, all those guys. Those are like, I didn't have a team, right? Because I wasn't living in the States. I didn't know anything about that. but I knew all the players and all the stats. And sure enough, I was like, I got to make this team. And coach comes, he unlocks the door, man, and everyone runs into the locker room. And I was one of the smaller guys at the time, but I remember running in there and I was like, I know I'm better than like half of these guys. And I'm just like looking at the list and I just run right through it. And I'm like, all right, I didn't see my name. Let me just check this out. I'm going to go slower. Go slower a second time. Nothing. I was like, all right, maybe I'm just really excited. So I go through it painfully for the third time.
Yeah.
Nothing. And dude, I was just like, I turned around, I just walked out of there, and I never felt so alone. That was like the first time where I actually felt that feeling of, dude, no one's with me, even though like I love some of these guys in here. And I didn't get that feeling again until when I lost my business. I literally lost everything. I mean, it was a $1 million business. I lost, the business itself was 25 employees. So I had to, we had to lay off people. People just kind of, it was tough. Lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of stuff, right? I had houses that I lost. I had cars that I lost. But probably the biggest thing that I lost was my self-worth. And man, I remember like literally going from house to house, because my houses were all getting foreclosed on. So I had 6 houses, but 5 were rented and 1 I was living at, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would just keep renewing the lease contracts. But during the market crash, a lot of people, got hit pretty hard. So people weren't renewing these leases. So basically I had all these houses that were essentially empty. Wow. And I remember one would get foreclosed on or basically foreclosed on. So I would have to move to the next house.
Yeah.
Right. And then that house would get foreclosed on. So then I had to move to the next. And I was basically essentially squatting in the houses that I own up until the end. Wow. And I just remember, man, like not like waking up every day and being like, is this the day that I have to move to my next house? And then asking God, saying, God, why are you even waking me up? Right. Like, I don't. Wow. And so those thoughts, and then, so even after all of that went away, and then I got a call from my buddy who was like, hey man, I don't know what you're going through. It sounds pretty rough. But you're a really good friend of mine. I'm moving down to Puerto Rico. I'm opening up this hotel. I've got a sweet pad that you can stay at until my wife moves down here with me. And I took him up on that call, even though I moved to literally paradise, right? Those feelings and that depression and all that lasted for like 4.5 years after. It took me a long time, and this is just me kind of self-diagnosing this stuff. So that was a huge, huge challenge. And not even know, and this is before I knew what a TCK was or a, Third Culture Kid book or any of that stuff. This is kind of me just burying my head in the dirt and being like, God, just please fix all of this, or take the rest of me, not just my head, like put all of me in the dirt. And so kind of, us having to go through that, and then also the masking of it, right? Because I still got to be, when I was down in the island, I was a bartender. When I went and I worked for sports, I was in sales and business development. So I had to wear a mask, a shield. Yeah. Because I couldn't let people know what was really going on, dude. Like, or even let myself know what was really going on, because I didn't want it to self-perpetuate. So that was the biggest one. There's other little ones, but I think that's probably the one that hit home the most. What are your thoughts around that?
Like I said, man, you're right in my story right now. I didn't go through, I wasn't in real estate when the crash happened, but just being a teacher, at the time, I mean, if you want to get honest, yeah, you stand in front of a class of 25 kids and they see you as one thing. Mm-hmm. You're preaching, you're doing your thing. You're making them believe in themselves and making them feel like they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And that made me feel good. And then I leave there. You talked about that mask, 100%, because I would leave there not as a fraud, but just as someone who, like, here I am preaching about you can do anything, you can be anybody, see the world outside of these city limits, you can do this, you can do that, because that's how you and I were raised, right? My mindset was like, I think globally, I don't think, within the city limits. And so I'm teaching this to these kids and making them believe in themselves. And then you walk out, get in your car, and I'd be going to a coaching job. And then after that, I'd be going to an EMT job. I was just trying to get by.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, like, I'm not a fraud, but like, what am I really doing? Like, what am I doing? You know, because it's frustrating. So I didn't have the exact same experience, but I had a
Yeah.
similar experience because you'd walk out of that class where they were all looking at you and you were making people believe in themselves,
Yeah.
yet you didn't quite believe in your own self.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
I totally can relate to that. Even now, I mean, there's still days I feel like I have a mask on.
Well, dude, I'm right there with you. And I think one of the biggest feelings that we have, and when I say we, me and you, and listen, if others can relate with this, then please raise your hand and please say something, because
Yeah.
dude, I'd love to know about it, because I'd love to have, hear more of these stories. But I'd say the biggest feeling is that feeling of because again, we got dragged around, like, and I'm not saying dragged around like it's a bad thing. Like, I got dragged around the world. Okay, wow, sob story.
Yeah.
I got dragged around the world, by the age of 16. And what's up, Calvin?
Yeah, there he is. Right? There's the man. Yeah.
And I also saw Andrew on there, man. That's awesome that he's on too.
Yeah.
So, but for basically for the first, the formative years of our lives, we were told where to go, and that's fine. I'm a child, I was a teenager. I should be told where to go and what to do. And then all of a sudden, we wake up and it's 20, 30 years later. And here's the feeling. I think I'll sum it up in just in this phrase. I'm not where I thought I should have been by now.
Boom.
If I've had this amazing experience that, most people don't understand, but most people, 99% of the world does not live by or go through, then why hasn't the second half of my life lived up to the first half of my life?
I love that, because I can relate to it. Yeah.
And I'm just like, and so we put this own pressure on ourselves, man. I mean, literally, man, some of it might be just coming up, just talking to you, but literally this idea of I'm not where I thought I should be by now, like constant little voice in the back of my head, man. And instead of living in the moment, right? Which I think,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, keep going, man. Just preach, because I'm hearing you. Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, dude, like I said, we create this world together, but I believe in our minds.
Yeah.
We create alternative worlds. One, which is like, yes, I am this TCK, and yes, I am. There's this, suit of armor, and there's the, and we're super heroic because we can fly and jet set to wherever we want. We've been in all these places, and that's freaking fantastic. But what's the difference between that and me saying, hey, I've had $1 million business and I grew this, and then I turn around and look back and I'm like, holy crap, that crumbled. I lost everything. And I haven't since then built that size of a fortune or that size of a business. And now all of a sudden here I am trying to do the same thing again. And the biggest thing that's missing is, unless we surround ourselves with a community that not only gets it, but also gets, has people that can get outside of that, right? That have the experience of breaking through, then dude, we're just going to stay stuck wearing a mask for the rest of our lives. And dude, that's my biggest fear, right? Because then guess what? I got little ones.
Yeah.
I want them to know the real me.
Yeah.
Not dad lived in all these countries and it sounds like a really cool intro. But the truth is there's an entire story behind it. And so, yeah, man, I mean, it's, knowing what we know now, I think we're better suited for, as we're raising family and being involved with kids and coaching or kids in our family. I think we're better for it, man. So that's why I'm so excited about you doing stuff like this, like Calvin getting on and doing things like this. So.
No, I appreciate that. You struck a good nerve when I say that. But you talk about living in the moment. That's probably the deeper conversations I've had with my wife, and she'll vouch for this too. I mean, she always watches these after the fact. She's upstairs painting her office, which it's all good. But
nice, man.
I think as TCKs, we do struggle with that. We do, because I don't. The thing is, I don't think us as TCKs, while I don't think we want to live in the past. We don't want to just hang our hat on what we grew up doing or where we've been and things like that, because there's so much more to us, right? We still have goals. We still have dreams. We still have things we want to accomplish, like you just talked about. But I do have that hard, personally, I do have a hard time living in the moment, because I'm always thinking, we talked about this earlier, I'm always thinking about what's next. Where can I be in 3 years? Where can I be in 5 years? What's the next job? So yeah, man, I honestly, every time you say anything on this show right now, I'm just like, this guy gets me. Check, 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 check. So it's almost bittersweet, but it's refreshing to hear that somebody else is going through that exact same
Yeah.
mindset that I've been going through. So I
Well,
appreciate that. So
right on, man. Absolutely. Well, and again, like I said, I don't want to harp on it because I also know that going through the kind of struggle and those pains, and there's a spectrum of it, right? Like
sure.
everyone's is different, and maybe not everyone has, lost a business or lost their favorite place to live or even lost family. Like everyone's gone through something different, but at the end of the day, when you go through it in this way, it truly makes you better if and only when you actually can face it, you can confront it, and you can literally like wear it on your sleeve and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, so that's why I don't hesitate telling people like, yeah, I own a business. And I lost it, like crashed and burned, but I'm glad it did. I wouldn't change anything. Sure, there were days where I didn't want to wake up, but man, I'm glad I got through that. And because of it, I know that if there's other people that are struggling with anything that's remotely related to that, TCK or not, that I might be able to speak some truth into their life and let them know that, hey, man, there's a bigger plan for you. And you don't have to worry about 3 years, 5 years from now. It's not about making the second half of your life better than the first half of your life, because you're not being judged by your history. Your history does not make you, right? Your history is just it's the past. And so when I realized, and listen, part of it for me, and I'm a Christian, and I found, I'll just take a quick second because I don't hide behind.
Fine, man. Yeah, go ahead.
About 2.5 years ago is when I found God, because I was in a very broken place. I was married. I did have a 3-month-old son at the time, and I had a business again that I had built, but I was struggling in all three. My business, was starting to struggle, and I'd just come out of I'd started a coaching and consulting business, but I left another rich 6-figure like insurance business that I had to do this other thing that I thought was my passion. And it certainly still is, right? But back then I didn't know the difference between passion and profits. And all of a sudden that was suffering. And now all of a sudden I'm like, man, am I made to be a good father? Am I good enough to be a good husband to my wife? And so I had all these questions, and none of my coaches could help me with any of it, except for one guy that was on there. That was one of my coaches, and I reached out, man, and he kind of pointed me to an event that changed my life. I cried out to the Lord in the middle of a cornfield. It's so funny, in the middle of literally a farm field, 1,500 miles away from my own backyard.
Yeah.
And that's where like all truth came rushing in for me. And really my life's changed since then. I'm not saying again it's perfect, but I was able to finally find what I felt was like home for me. And so that's one thing I recognize is, unless you have someone somewhere where you can like truthfully lay your foundation on, it's going to be a struggle, man. It's going to be real tough. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. My brother just chimed in too. If you look down there,
Jason. All right. Welcome, Jason.
He's an East Coast boy. He's over by you. He's in New Jersey now, but he was a New Yorker for many, many years.
All right. Right on.
Yeah.
I used to travel up to New Jersey all the time when I first got in the mortgage business with all the.
There you go. Looks like our buddy Calvin's chimed in. Yeah, we're definitely gonna make a movie out of this. I've got connections.
Come on.
We'll get Bertha Penn. I don't know if you guys watched, but a couple episodes ago, she's a big wig in the Hollywood world, and she's a director. Maybe we'll have to start casting now, Pablo.
So, you never know, right?
Yeah, you never know, man. So, but look, I truly appreciate your transparency and your honesty, man. That's
yeah, brother.
And I say that, I hope I'm speaking for, like you said, all of us that have grown up the way we did. It's just, there are so many unknowns, and yet we I think I said this earlier, but I don't want to get stuck in what I was. I want people to see who I am now, what I could,
right.
The possibilities, things like that. And yet I don't shy away from how I grew up, because that is what made me, right?
Right.
That is what my core of who I am was in and out of different cultures. I respect people for who they are, not what they look like, right? I respect them for their cultural beliefs, not, not where they're from. That's just how I was raised. It sounds
Right.
similar, I think, to you.
Yeah.
You were on a military base. I was in the, not on a military base, but we were, I don't know, transcended into the little different, I guess you'd call them suburbs of, China or Hong Kong or Taiwan. But you learn to just really appreciate people for the core of who they are.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things, the gifts that we were given. Yet I don't want to just be known for what I did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And yet that's who made me. Those stories are what made me. That's who I am now. My best friends to this day are the kids that I grew up with. It's just how it is. It's an interesting life you and I have been handed, right? But it's not one I shy away from. But hearing your story, I'm saying this to you as a friend now too. It's just, it's so comforting to know. For a long time, I thought I was alone, even with the people that I grew up with, because I think we talked about masks earlier. So many of us wear those masks. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Life is good. And yet you close this down, you shut this off, you go back to your real life. And it's just like, that's not quite true. Right. So, but it's refreshing to hear. And I thank you for sharing. So,
yeah, absolutely, man. Well, and like I said, so I think part of it is then, so we do have to find then what is worth making this all, worthwhile. And I think part of it is you have to find your purpose. Right. And I know that's like a cliche thing. And, but it's interesting, and I'll tie this up quickly because I do want to share just a few things that I share with all TCKs. I think everyone should know about themselves if they don't already, and chances are they do. They may, but it's never been maybe pointed out this way. But it's funny, first and foremost about purpose is that for me, for the longest time, so here I was, right? I'm like, okay, let me just forget about the past, not worry about that. I got to find out like what I'm supposed to do now. And so then you go on this hunt, right? And it's usually like a fruitless hunt of like trying to find out what your purpose is. Usually it ends up being something that, at least for me, it was where I should be making money or like what I should be doing to make money. And that's really not it. And then all of a sudden one day I found myself listening to a pastor, and actually this guy was, he was head of like the international ministries, right? And he was from Taiwan, and he was doing all this amazing work. But anyway, so he was talking about purpose, and I was kind of listening. I was like, man, this guy isn't going to know what purpose is, or he's not going to have anything for me. And sure enough, dude, in like 3 words, like my mind was blown, and I ran home that day. And it's so funny. Like literally that's the day that I walked up the steps into my office. I looked over to my bookshelf, and I'm like, what am I even doing? And the one book that was screaming out at me was Third Culture Kids book. And what he said, those 3 words was, he said, and it felt like he's talking to me. Someone say, he said, Pablo, he said, your pain has been positioned for your purpose.
Wow.
And I was like, my pain has been positioned for my purpose. And all of a sudden, boom, I was like, so everything that we went through, these struggles, these like losing this and feeling this and thinking that this is going to happen and not happen. I was like, man, whatever pain we've gone through, that's what puts us and creates us and makes us ready for what we're supposed to step into and really do and help others with. Because if we got through it, like what was the point of going through it? Wasn't just to get through and be like, oh, hey, great hurdle you jumped over, Ben. Great job, man. There's 20 more of them. I'm sure you can do them all. No, it's the fact that you got over it. Now you can turn around and teach other people that are about to come across that hurdle. Hey, you don't even have, here's how you best go over it. Or if you're not even like a jumper, here's how you just kind of just go around it. Like you don't even have, you can avoid it altogether. Right. And now all of a sudden these people are like, Ben, thank you so much for doing that. And so, so I figured that out. That was just incredible because now I literally realized I'm like, so this is why I'm so transparent about this stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I'm hoping somebody out there maybe is going through or went through something like that and, might hear a word of inspiration. But so anyway, 3 things that I share is I think all TCKs have this, at least every TCK that I've ever talked to, interacted with. And really, I grabbed these from my own life, but then I kind of tested it in other people.
I'm taking notes, by the way. So don't think I'm bored. I'm looking down. I'm taking notes.
No worries, man. I'm glad you're taking notes.
Yeah.
Send me a copy, man, because
Yeah.
I don't know where this stuff is coming from.
Yeah.
But the first one is that TCKs, I truly believe we do not know what the word risk is. That's why we are risk. When I say risk takers, I can't even say that because I truly believe we don't know what risk is. So we're not really risk takers. We're just action takers. We're willing to take risks that other people in our circles are like, are you out of your mind? What are you thinking? Why? Right? In all different acts of life. So that's number one. And I think that's a good thing, right? Like businesses are not built. Yep. Sovereign nations are not formed without someone, putting whatever risk that is, that's usually pretty paramount, and putting aside and saying, hey, we're going to make this happen come hell or high water, right? You think of, what's his name? Braveheart on the horse, giving his speech.
Not every man lives. Yeah.
That's right. Number two, the second thing is it's this idea that we have the way of seeing things that other people don't. I call it global vision. We have global vision.
I love that.
Yeah. And the thing about that vision, the thing about having global vision is that we have a perspective that other people don't, right? Because when you could be uprooted and move to another, you just learn how to see things it's not like 3D. We learn to see it almost in like GD, right? In a good way, in a global, I don't even know what the D stands for now that I'm saying that. But anyway, in that perspective. And so for me, I'm like, think about it, right? Do you ever go into conversations, and especially like maybe even at work, where people are trying to figure something out, like, how do we approach this problem and how do we work it? And you're like, you guys got to take a step back and look at this thing globally, because I think you're missing the picture, right?
I think globally, man. I'm like you. I don't think locally. I think globally. So nothing makes sense to me unless I step back and perceive it as a global thing. Yeah. So totally.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm like, man, you guys are thinking of this like, how do you get from point A to point B, like in a car? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking like, how do we connect these two, via air travel, and again, I'm speaking analogously, but I think that when we can view things from a much higher perspective, dude, it's like, it's so freeing that you're like, you actually are bringing something to the party. Because now all of a sudden, dude, I have conversations with CEOs, right? And namely like the CEO even of my company, that he's always like, dude, I never thought of it that way. Mm-hmm. You ever hear people tell you that, right? Yeah. That maybe are not TCKs.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. So, and then lastly, I think, it's this idea we kicked off with the fact that we can talk to anybody. We can roll up and start sharing ideas, and we kind of know who is who. We have this radar. But I think the third thing is that we're collaborators. We are like, we are the most proficient collaborators, because we can not only just introduce ourselves to somebody, but we literally can find out everything about each other in a short period of time, see if there's opportunity to build life, build friendship, build business, build this, right? Connect people. Like, who else can do that, dude? And when you look at those three things together, someone who's willing to take risk, break down barriers just to make ish happen, right? Somebody who's willing to look at things from a global perspective, not just locally. And then someone who's willing to then make the connections and find the people to do the things that we need to do. Like, dude, I'm looking at that. I'm like, whoever that freaking person is, I want you to hire them, make them the CEO of my company. And the truth is that's why I say that I believe TCKs are, my case is that I believe TCKs are the most remarkable employees. And if you're hiring a TCK, you better take care of them, because if not, they're going to become the most remarkable business owner, because they're going to leave you to do their own thing if you don't take care of them. And so, that's truly what I believe. And then what I've realized is that that's also part of entrepreneurship. Yeah. If you can figure out those things in entrepreneurship, man, you are like light years ahead of other entrepreneurs that are trying to maybe do the same thing you are. And so I give that as words of encouragement to anyone. And even if you're in a company even if you're working in a company, man, that company has they might most likely don't know the value that they have within you and within your whatever silo that you're in or department that you're working in. Chances are you're probably the most brilliant person there. And so don't take that to heart. Just know that if you lean into those things, man, that's the positive stuff. You can shatter records. You can help people, find their breakthroughs. You can have businesses explode and even be born. So, yeah, man. Sorry, I know I went on a little rant, but
I'm sitting here going like this, man.
Whatever, stop.
Wow.
I just asked, dude, listen, I didn't create any of this stuff. I just asked the right questions. And so I'm not taking any credit for it. Although, I'd like to say, I just like say, hey, these are the 3 things I always say. But that's the thing about anything, man. If you ask the right questions, you will get, the quality answers. I like to say, if you ask the right questions, you will live the right quest, right? I didn't start asking the right questions until years later.
Writing notes right now. Wow, this took a whole different turn, but a positive turn. Don't take it wrong. So,
hey, Calvin's taking notes. What's up?
He is. He's writing things down too. So I love that. So, wow, let's do this because I want to keep this moving. But we're gonna circle back to your whole business ventures and everything like that, and I want to pick your brain big time on a lot of things, specifically the business side of things. But before we dive deep into that, let's talk about your the fact that you grew up all over the place, just like I did. Were you in international schools or were you in DoD schools, Department of Defense schools? Like, how did that? What kind of schools were you at when you were overseas?
So I initially had gone to. So like I said, my first, my mom and I. She didn't marry my stepfather till I was like 6 or 7, or 5, something like that. Anyway, so the first 5 years, I kind of went to like preschool and kindergarten. Okay. But what was cool about TCKs, right? We learned the language of the country that we lived in, and then we went to a school there, right? Yeah. And it wasn't an international school; it was literally like the local school.
So you went local.
Yeah, a local school there.
As a little guy, you went local.
So I was speaking my first language, even though it was Spanish, because that's what my mom spoke to me. I actually knew more Greek than I did Spanish, right? Spoke Italian 3rd and then English 4th. But I went to DoD schools.
Okay.
Yeah, like I literally, every school I had gone to was either on a military base or right next to a military base. Yeah. Okay. And so it was all military brats that I was elbow to elbow with.
Yeah, with the expansion then of social media, have you been able to, I guess, reconnect with some of those friends that you grew up with, or did you have any issues?
Oddly enough, yeah. In high school, because I was so fresh, and I only lived there for a year. I was not that popular, right? It was if you're the new kid.
I don't believe it. No, that's
not that popular ever. So no, I had a handful of great connections and stuff. In fact, my next door neighbor in Spain, who she was like, I think she was a sophomore when I was a senior. She was the one who actually handed me the TCK book.
Oh, really?
After we had both moved back to the States.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I connected with some folks, but what was interesting is like, I look back at all this, and everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, right? It's not, a lot of people weren't like super excited about the TCK thing that I had found, right? I kind of felt like I found this like golden thing, and you got to like check it out. They were like, that's cool, man. I got like 6 kids I got to get to.
It happens. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because there are some TCKs that have moved on and they don't reflect back on that the way you and I do. Mm-hmm. And that's totally fine. I want to make sure that's said as well. I mean, you and I are very similar in so many ways, but there are those of us that was a chapter in their life, and as it was a chapter in our lives, they enjoyed it while it was happening, but they've moved on and they don't look back. And there's a part of me that is jealous of that, but there's another part of me that's like, what are you talking about? This is who we are, right? Like,
well, think about the conversations we're having, man. I mean, none of these conversations are having without reflecting. Taken away from it. So
Yeah, totally. Hey, my mom's even watching, so shout out to my mom. There we go. So,
Hey, mom. Is that Sharon?
yeah, totally.
Hey,
So,
Sharon.
um,
Your son's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, no, it's great. I've got a whole family watching
All of
today.
them.
My brother's on, my mom's on, everybody's on. So it's, but no, I appreciate that because I totally can respect that, and it's not saying it's right or wrong. It's just their perception of what we went through, right? And if that was they put the period on the end of the sentence and moved on, great,
Yeah.
more power to them, But I do think you and I also lived a lot of years that way. I think there was a difference. Those of us that lived, I don't know, 5, 7, 6, 7 years of doing what we did. Plus, I mean, I was over there for 10 years, overseas for 10 years. And I was 7 when we moved and 17 when we came back. It sounds like you were pretty similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some that maybe went 2 or 3 years. And so they can see the difference in the two options, I guess, so to speak. But it's not a right or wrong. It's just, it's what it was. And however people, what they took out of it, so be it. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to say
Right.
like, what the hell, man? Like you grew up the way I did. Why aren't you struggling the way I'm struggling? Right? No, I totally get that. Like I'm actually, happy that they don't have the same struggles that you and I had.
Right. Well, don't forget too, man. I mean, there's always certain levels of that mask that's being worn too, right? So we can't forget that.
No, I totally agree with that, and that's why I'm glad you brought up the mask concept because for so many years, and even now to an extent, I think I still do that.
Yeah.
Well, there's people that, and the irony is, it's a lot of it's TCKs that you can drop your guard, you can be who you are, and they respect that. That's one of the it's kind of ironic that COVID's put such a restriction on being able to travel, and I've said this, I think the last 3 episodes. The most frustrating thing with me regarding COVID is that it's the first time in my life I haven't had plans to get on a plane and go somewhere.
Mm.
That's really tough, right?
Yep.
For people like us,
Yep.
But at the same time, it's been a blessing that I've been able to reconnect because my friends from Taipei specifically, we've been able to do about a month, every other month, maybe so. I can't think of the exact number of times we've done this, but we've been able to reconnect on Zoom. There's about 15 of us that get on Zoom and we just talk about life. And it's not a let's jump right back into high school days. It's actually more life now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How everybody's doing, we check in with each other. And I do think that's important, I think because these are people, the second you hit click to join a Zoom, these are people that you don't have to explain yourself to.
Right.
You pick up right where you left off. Everybody's got wives or husbands or families now, but you pick up right where you left off. And we spent the last time we all talked a couple weeks ago, it had nothing to do with how we grew up. It had to do with the right here, right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
With COVID struggles. But these are people that you can just drop your guard and take that mask off and be you. Right. And I truly, I don't think I ever tell them enough, but I do appreciate the fact that they're there for that reason, and I love that. It's
that's
nice
so good to hear, man.
Go right back to who knows, and some of these people I haven't even physically seen or been around in 20 plus years, but we can just pick up right where we left off, and I love that. So
yeah, that's good. And that sense of community, dude, you probably have more of a sense of community in that than people that have been friends, their entire lives. That think they know each other. So that's really awesome. You can do that. And I think that that's needed in bigger circles too. So maybe not people that grew up in these areas together, right? Or went to school, because I lived in the same place, but because you get where I've been, right? Like you and I, like, I feel like if you and I were on a call like that with 15 other you and I's, it'd be like, okay, this is awesome. So what are we going to talk about today? But I think that that's just needed so much more, and whatever it is that's going on out there, more of that actually needs to be built and to focus on life, focus on like where we're going as opposed to,
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I actually love those in-depth conversations about right here, right now, what's going on in the world, how we, most of us are back in the States now, and we can talk about the conflicts that are going on in the States, it's a different world, right? Let's just call it what it is, right? But we don't just cling on to, oh, I miss being this and I miss this, and it's real world conversations. It's not just clinging on for the sake of clinging on. It's the fact that we've grown. technically adults. That's what the paperwork says. You and I joked about that.
We just found out about it.
Yeah,
right?
before we went.
It took us a long time.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful thing that you can just pick up right where you left off. I haven't seen some of these people in many years. The people that I've on the show, and you're gonna laugh at this, and I'm waiting for the right moment to do this. There's my buddy Matt Tapley, who was a guest a couple of episodes ago. It's a soccer questions coming just for you, by the way.
Okay.
But I do want to. That's what I love about even Matt Tapley. Like, we weren't tight in high school, but I could pick up and talk to Matt and feel completely comfortable talking to Matt right here, right now, because he understands what I went through. He understands who I am as a person, because he's the exact same way. He's lived that life, and it's again, it's not right or wrong. I'm better or worse. It's the cards we were dealt.
Exactly.
And I always try to make sure I throw that out there in every single episode. I don't think I'm better than anybody. It's just the cards I was dealt, and how I adapted to it. And was it good? Yes. Was it frustrating at times? Absolutely. But it's life, and we kind of go from there. So
yeah. No, that's dude, that's the thing. We just need more of that, man. So we got to figure out a way to make that happen, to collaborate and make that happen.
Well, we're gonna talk about your collaboration stuff in just a second, but I'm gonna jump ahead and just let Matt, because it's a perfect transition question. Well, you and I have been serious for about 30 minutes.
What's he talking about? What's Matt
saying?
I
love this question. I'm not even a big soccer guy, but you'll appreciate this, Pablo.
Come on.
Messi or Maradona?
Well, I don't have a number on the back of this one, and even if I did, the number would be the same, right? Because they both wear the same number. Messi or Maradona?
Yeah, there you go.
It's funny. So I was 8 years old. My mom woke me up at like 2:30 in the morning. We were living in Japan at the time. It was 1986.
World Cup.
She's like, you gotta come watch this. She didn't say Argentina is playing Germany. She said Maradona is playing against Germany. And I think it was West Germany. I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was the final, right? And so she woke me up out of and that was literally the first full, not really full. It was like maybe second half. That was the first time I watched international soccer. Mm-hmm. And I got to see, Maradona. I was only 8. And then I got to see, kind of what happened to Maradona after he retired. It's sad. It's sad what he's become and what he's done, and I get it. But man, I grew up literally watching Messi take his first, step off the bench, play his first game, score a goal in his first game. I've watched every single game the guy's ever played. I think he's just absolutely incredible. He's a genius. He's brilliant. He hasn't had any luck with putting any more stars on this guy.
Even I get that. Yeah, I understood that.
But yeah, it's Messi's definitely my guy. Messi's my man. And again, remember we were talking about the whole loyalty thing, right? Where's home?
Yeah.
If Messi left and went to go play back in Argentina for some team Rosario that I've never followed in my life, or Newell's Old Boys, I'd probably become a fan of him at that team, right? I just follow him wherever he went. If he went to a rival Real Madrid, I'd have to be still a Messi fan. I'm not gonna not like him.
You almost did, right?
I've binge watched his videos of him like just embarrassing people, on the field. But anyway, I'm a Messi guy. How about you, Matt? What's Matt?
Yeah, Matt, chime in. Let us know your thoughts here. But didn't Messi almost leave this summer? Or was it?
Did.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But he didn't have 700 million stashed away in case team wasn't willing to pay it.
Yeah, there's that. I still pay attention. I can't say I'm a huge soccer fan, football fan, but I still pay attention.
But I will say this to Matt's credit. Thank you for saying Messi or Maradona, not Messi or Ronaldo.
There you go. Right? Yeah, Matt knows his stuff. There we go. He just chimed in. He's on board. There you go.
Maradona all the way. Hey, that's awesome though.
Yeah. He's a good one. So yeah, he was on a couple episodes ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed our chat. So
right on.
But let's move on, because the biggest question I love to ask, because it's the one I struggle with the most when I first got back to the States. let's talk about that acclimation process, because you're a guy born in Argentina, and you grew up the same but different from how I did. How was it because where'd you go to college? You went East Coast, right?
Yep, right here in Maryland,
Okay,
Towson.
so yeah. So let's talk about that acclimation process then. How was that for someone like you?
I don't know, man. Maybe I'm not. I don't know that I'm. I don't know. I'm the right person to ask a lot of these questions because I feel like I was so quote unquote different from
Oh,
other
that's why you're the perfect person to ask these two.
TCKs or whoever. But yeah, acclimation for me, it was just another place. It was just another place where I was going to do my best. I was going to meet people. I was going to, I was going to take risks. I was going to collaborate. I was going to,
Let me stop you real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but where does that come from? Was it an intrinsic thing, or did your mom play a big role in that, or just because you seem to be pretty, even back then when you talk about that acclimation process, you seem like you had it instilled in you early, like take those risks, take that chance, do this thing, go be you. Like,
dude, my mom, it's so funny you asked about my mom. That's exactly where I got it. She was the first one that I learned from, that you can dream dreams, that you can have dreams, that you can actually chase them, and that you can actually like accomplish them. I learned that from her, literally from our travel adventures, right? Like her leaving Argentina, like she had me when she was, 21.
Wow.
And she left the country to go to a country that she didn't speak the language, right? And was not like married or anything like that. Like, so she was an entrepreneur. She basically, got a job cleaning businesses. Yeah. So she was taking risks, man. I was, like I said, I was there for the ride. She met who she had to meet. And even like to the point of like introducing me to my wife, right? Like she knew like there's something special about this one. You might want to meet her. Yeah, they work together. But she was, she was setting stuff up there. And I was like, she just knows her stuff, man. Like, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's kind of where all that came from. I would awesome, say. Man.
Yeah, we both had good moms, man.
Yeah, see, it's the right women. God surrounded us with the right women in our lives for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but getting back to that acclimation process. So you had a somewhat easy transition, or?
Yeah, man, I never thought that was a difficult thing for me. I've heard people that have struggled with it. And again, for me, acclimation was different because anywhere, as a military brat,
yeah,
it was a military base where everyone spoke English. And we were just moving. So that was that. I'd just say, hey, maybe that was a little bit easier than maybe, like a corporate brat or a Diplo brat. But I feel like you can, again, as TCKs, we can find our community pretty quickly. So I didn't have a problem with that at all. Again, I went from the US, which I lived at in 5.5 years, the longest period, to then Spain only for a year, and then back to the States. Yeah. To basically the same place where I'd lived previous. So yeah.
Well,
let's just say I got lucky on that.
There's a side of that I'm jealous of. Yeah. I respect that too. What let me ask you this then. We've been talking about TCKs. What do you think the biggest misconception is about us TCKs?
That we are so damn sexy, like, I mean, seriously.
That's I didn't see that coming from you, man.
Finding, cover shoots all the time.
That's awesome. I'm just gonna go with that then.
I'm good with that.
Good night, folks. We're done. Oh, that's great. So, all right. Well, we'll just skip right over that. No,
I wouldn't know. I don't know, man.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Other than maybe what you and I had already talked about, that maybe we think we're better than others, or things that it's not true. Just because I lived other places, again, that's great. I'm very grateful, but that wasn't my choice. It happened to me, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah.
No, I 100% back you up on that. Yeah. All right, we've kind of talked about this, and I want you to go in detail here. Your bio talks about you being an intrapreneur. It talks about you being an entrepreneur. You started a business at 25. Life happened. The economy took a turn. Talk about the difference between what an intrapreneur is versus an entrepreneur, because I'd never even heard that term before, and I have somewhat of a business background with my MBA. But talk about those two things, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was sending a quick text to my wife, let her know
everything good.
I'll be down soon. Yeah, I just heard my little guy, but
okay,
he's 2.5 years old. That's pretty normal. Uh, so now, if all of a sudden you hear directives to me, and I just got to cut out, that's a whole nother story, right? But
You're married, I get it, brother.
it's a work from home thing that, like, you know, even the corporate world's had to learn how to just like work with.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine.
So yeah, entrepreneur. Well, let's start with the easy one, right? Entrepreneur. And I say easy, but it's not easy being one.
Yeah.
You know, I just always viewed entrepreneurs as someone who found a need in the marketplace, and we're willing to fill the need, right, and help solve a problem, even if it wasn't their responsibility. That's what I coin as an entrepreneur. And then an intrapreneur. So basically, an entrepreneur is just someone who's willing to take a risk, collaborate, and start something that in order to help others. So that's an entrepreneur. And basically, my entire career, I didn't realize I was one until I look back and I said, oh man, okay. I started my first job at, I left a bank that I used to work with for a few years to start a company that was a mortgage company, right? And I was working at the mortgage division of a bank. So I realized I can start my own thing, my own opportunity. And that's what happened. And then I started, after that, when it failed, since then I'd started 3 other companies, essentially 3 that I've essentially walked away from, right? These weren't like spectacular failures like my first one. And so, and then most recently, I had an opportunity to become an intrapreneur. And again, I didn't know what an intrapreneur, same way I didn't know what a TCK was. And an intrapreneur is just somebody that is an entrepreneur that is now working inside of an organization, right? So you're kind of like a covert entrepreneur, which is cool because it's cool in a couple ways. Number one is that you can still build your thing on the side, right? Or you can also really help your company with that entrepreneur mindset to really help build up whatever it is that your role is to do, right? So for me, I'm a director of training and development for a pretty well-known SaaS mortgage technology company, right? And they brought me on literally just to train people because that's what I was doing as a coach and a trainer. As a business owner, I was training companies to help them, in their sales and management processes, things like that. And in fact, the company that hired me was a former client of mine. But little did they know when they hired me as just a trainer that they were going to get the whole list of, right, TCK, intrapreneur awesomeness that we have to offer. So I looked it up. I was like, I'm not an entrepreneur because I still want people to know that I'm working somewhere, like I'm working a full-time gig, but then I'm also still trying to build stuff out on the side. And it was funny because I was trying to find the term, and I was sitting in my bed. I had my daughter, she was only 2 months old at the time, sitting in my lap on my bed, and this company had just hired me. And I was like, thank God they hired me because it was, COVID had just hit my business. My contracts weren't renewing, on the self-employed side. So I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen? Sure enough, this company hires me. And so I'm sitting in my bed with my wife and my daughter. My son's asleep. And I'm just like, whew. I was like, man, feeling really good, feeling relaxed. And I'm feeling like I can take a break. And then all of a sudden, just in my head pops, you're not done yet. You got a lot more to do, right? So God has always got a bigger plan for us, regardless of what we think, our plan is. And sure enough, I discovered, oh, wow, I'm an intrapreneur, and maybe I'm supposed to help other people that are working full-time jobs to help them build something on the side. Why? Because, well, I've built something on the side in the forefront, and now I can do it on the side, and I'll actually help them while I'm doing it, right? So it was funny. It was almost like this I don't know, it was very meta, right? It was like, you're doing what you want to show others how to do, and you've had success. I mean, listen, my company, the company I work with, I train upwards of 20,000 people across the country on how to use our software. It's wildly successful. Mortgage companies, you work at one, they don't need a lot of help right now, yet they love what we have because they know that, like, when all this stuff goes away, there's going to be people like twiddling thumbs and wondering, what do we do next? And we help them get out of that. So I've had a lot of success with that and showing people how to train others. And so now I'm like, well, why don't I help other people help other people learn what it is that they do? And so it was just kind of this cool thing. And that's why I started the group, the Collaborators Academy, because I was like, man, I just love to collaborate with other people that would want to learn, either if they're doing the same thing and want to figure out a way to get out of it or do it on the side, or, if, unfortunately they've lost their job, or they're just like, you know what, I want to do this full time. And I've done it full time, and I've had, success and failures. So, intrapreneur, it's basically just, one is inside of an organization. That's the intrapreneur.
I appreciate that. Did I get your website right? Look down real quick. I just
want that's it. And that just takes you right to the to the Facebook group that we have. It's free to join. And I'm looking for people to share their story, right? And we say we do three things on our what's called the collaborative show. People share their entrepreneurial journey. They shine light in areas of darkness, and then also they sharpen each other's swords, right? So we're all learning from each other. We'd love to know what you're doing, and we'd love to know how you've gotten there. And so you got to have you on the show one time, man.
I'll be signing up, man. Just say when. Yeah, you know that. So no, I appreciate that. And I know I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to move this along a little bit. We could, you and I, man, I feel like I've known you my whole life right now. So
likewise. Yeah, absolutely, man.
So let's just jump right to it. I want to completely flip the topic now. We've talked about TCKs. We've talked about business side of things. We've talked about a lot of stuff. You're also a type 1 diabetic. And,
that's right.
And someone, back in the teacher days when I was jumping from teaching to coaching to I was also an EMT for a long time. And so I a lot of patients, a lot of patients I had were diabetic issues and things like that. How did the fact that you were type 1 diabetic, the role that played in your life, even until this point, but specifically growing up, did that play a huge role? Or, I mean, when you, I guess, what age were you when you were diagnosed?
Well, it's funny. I was diagnosed after my TCK-ness. After my I was 22.
Okay, wow.
That's 22. Yeah. I was diagnosed as a type 2. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, as crazy or different as TCKs are, and it was very fitting the way that my diabetes came to be. I started off as a type 2.
Yeah.
And as a young man, right? I was 22. I was starting a business in the next couple of years, and then they gave me the magic pill, and they were like, "Here you go. You take this, and you're gonna be fine." And so I took this, and I thought I was fine, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not diabetic." So for the next 6 years, I basically tapped out my pancreas, right? Yeah. Drinking whatever I want, eating whatever I want, and that was not good. And now I couldn't get my blood sugars under control. So now I'm 28, and I go to the doctor, and I'm like, "Doc, I think I need more meds because this isn't working anymore. I can't get my numbers under control." Sure enough, I tapped out my pancreas, and they're like, "Oh, turns out you're type 1. You need insulin." Right. And so, so I've been taking insulin for the last, 20 years. Mm-hmm. Not 20 years. What am I talking about?
How old are you, man?
15 years. Yeah. Okay. 15 years. Still. Yeah. And that was, it was crazy because, like, dude, we gotta see, as TCKs, we have to see the positive side. And I mean, not only do we have, I say we have to, I think we do. I think we can easily see the positive in anything, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the same way, like, we don't see risk, right? Because everything's like, well, what's the positive outcome that can happen? If we look at risk, we don't really look at positive outcomes. We look at it the other way. Now, if you're analytical, I get it. You look at risk. But at the same time, when I was first diagnosed, I remember thinking, like, I was grateful that it wasn't something else. Right. When I was diagnosed, right, like, your blood sugars on average need to be between 80 and like 120 at the highest. Yeah. When I was diagnosed, dude, 856. It was like syrup was in my veins.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, I shouldn't even be alive. No. So I was very grateful that it wasn't anything else. And that it was something that was manageable with lifestyle, even though the next 6 years I basically screwed it up, right? But
Like
to this day, and again,
man, you were 22, so
yeah. But I'll tell you what, man. I mean, I had a hard time over the last 10 years trying to get my numbers under control, even though I was, I had insulin, and again, I thought I was eating right. And then my wife, over COVID, she heard me talking about, me feeling like aches and pains and inflammation in my joints and all this stuff, and how I felt like I was an older man in a 40-year-old body. And she had just watched her, or not watched, I guess listened to, because he was in Venezuela, and but her father passed away like 2.5 years ago of heart disease. And she was like, I'm not going to let that happen to you. When we got 2 kids, your ass ain't going anywhere, and you better stick around as long as possible. Yeah. And so she got me started on a lifestyle diet back in May. And brother, it has changed my life. It has changed everything. It has flipped everything. I have the best A1Cs I've had I think since I was probably ever since diabetic, right? Because I never knew A1Cs before. And, in the span of like 30 days, it went down from like 9.2 to 6.5.
That's awesome.
I'm taking 75% less insulin. I'm eating more than I've ever eaten before. I'm eating like 700 grams of carbs every day. I'm never hungry. Like, I'm faster. I got so much energy, which you need when you got kids. Yeah. So it's been a blessing, man. And again, then now she's helping other people.
That's fantastic.
That either are struggling with diabetes or even other kind of, issues, heart disease and those sorts of things.
That's what it's all about, right? Just giving back, finding something that you can give back.
Well, remember that pain has been positioned for your purpose.
Yeah, I love that, man. You brought that up earlier. Yeah, it's that cycle. Yeah, I love it though. But I'm glad you're doing well.
Thanks, brother.
I wanted to make sure, not to glorify it or underglorify it. I just wanted, people that are watching. I'm sure there's somebody watching that maybe is in the same boat as you, and I just want them to know that. Yeah, here's a role model for you. He's doing things right, and he's got it under control.
Yeah. Well, listen, if anyone asks me, I'll literally direct them to my wife. And if I'll maybe shameless plug her Instagram, which I think they'll appreciate as TCKs if they're listening or not. Plant-based _ mamacita.
I'm gonna put that on here. Hopefully I spell it right. So hold on one second.
Yeah, plant-based mamacita.
Plant-based _.
Mm-hmm.
Spell the mamacita for me. I don't want to spell it
like
wrong.
Mama and then CITA.
That's the Instagram. Okay,
there it is, right there. Boom. Yeah.
Did I get it right?
You got it.
Yeah, check that out. So, no, that's awesome, man. I'm happy for you, and you seem to be doing great. I mean, I didn't know you years back, but you seem to be doing great. So
yeah, no, it's been good. And again, it was one of those other things where it's like, on the outside, everything looked like it was okay. Yeah. And so I had to, keep that up. But truly on the inside, man, I was deteriorating. And if anyone that's gone through, diabetes or lost anyone through, to heart disease or even cancers, like this lifestyle literally helps reverse, all the damage that that your previous lifestyle had helped you, get to. So definitely check that out.
I'm glad you're doing well, man. Just keep on, keep it on, right? So I appreciate that. You kind of hinted at this earlier, but let's talk about Travel Bug as a TCK. Do you still have that? And if so, what's the? I know COVID's kind of thrown a whole different thing into a lot of our lives, but what's the last trip you took? Just in terms of, I guess maybe a family trip even.
Yeah, no, it was, man. It's been a while. I think maybe Aruba, like Venezuela and then Aruba. It was like the same trip. Yeah. Was that the last trip? I think so.
It's long.
It's been a while. That's probably like 3 years ago. Yeah. We were supposed to go to Miami, right? We had booked flights and we were taking the family. Yeah. And then in fact we were gonna go, and that was gonna be over the summer for her birthday. Mm-hmm. But we had booked that before COVID, and of course, Florida is a hot mess right now with COVID, unfortunately, and so that got canceled. And then we were going to go to Spain to go visit family at the end of the year, for holidays. That's not happening. So, do I have a travel bug? I like the idea of I like traveling actually more for business.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I don't know, man. I feel like I get so much done like on the flights, like in the airport, and then going, like, I don't know. It just feels, for me, it feels good. I wish I could travel internationally for work. That'd be awesome. But hopefully my wife and I, we can figure some things out. But the cool thing about right now, right, working in mortgages, working in technology, we literally can work from anywhere in the world. The problem is we cannot get on a flight right now and go anywhere in the world. So
100% back you up on that.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, totally. No, totally. Well, let's bring your wife back into the picture here. So I guess she's not a TCK then. Let's move it all the way up. There you go. Look at that. Look at you crazy kids. Nice job. I like it. But how does she feel about the way you grew up and all your experiences and things like that? Because I was going to ask you about your kids too, but they're super young. I mean, I think you said you had a 3-year-old and a couple months old, or
yeah. So my guy Luca.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah. He's in this picture is like 2.5, and she's like 2 months or a month there. She was born April 1st.
Okay.
This year, right. So right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
April Fool's Day. But we just said that the joke was on the enemy, because even in the middle of a storm, a miracle can come, right? So,
love that.
Yeah. So her name's Andreina,
Okay.
and did she? That's a whole nother story. I'll just share with you real quickly what we went through and how we met, and then I think it'll explain what she's willing to kind of deal with, whether it's my TCK-ness or just sometimes.
She puts up with you, so she can't be too bad at all, right? So that's how I always describe my wife. Like, people say, "What's your wife like?" I'm like, she puts up with this. So
yeah, exactly. I mean,
I
met her while I was traveling here from the West Coast, right? So I was working in LA.
Okay.
I had a break during the season, and I was working with the sports team, Major League Soccer, and I came here to come visit my mom, right? Because again, it's the only person I have to come visit. And so, I was here for like a week. My mom didn't take the whole week off or anything like that, but she was like, "Why don't you come to the office and have lunch with me one of these days?" And she was working at Hopkins. And so I went and I visited her, and she introduced, she wanted to introduce me to everyone. Moms want to show off their kids, I'm sure,
Yeah.
And so she's like introducing me to this person and this person and this person. And I'm like, "Oh, that's great." And then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh," she looks back. She's like, "Ooh, there's one person I want you to really meet." And I'm like, "What does that really meet me?"
Yeah.
And sure enough, she walks me around the corner, and there's Andreina sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh, that's nice." I'm a little embarrassed, and I kind of think I know what's going on here. And we walk away, and I'm like, "Mom, what are you even thinking? Like, I live 3,000 miles away."
Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, but you never know." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, so anyway, we connected. We actually, while I was there, Andrea and I connected because one of her girlfriends like bum rushed me and was like, "Hey, do you like girls? Are you single? Do you like sports?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, yes."
Yeah.
And so we ended up hanging out. Like we went on a couple dates during that week, right? And then I had to go back home. We did not communicate during.
Oh, wow.
Like after I moved back, after I went back.
Yeah.
And that was 2 years that I was gone.
Oh, wow.
And then so 2 years when I finally moved back, right? I made that drive from Southern California back here. Of course, my mom's like, "So are you going to reach out to Andreina?" And I'm thinking like, wait, she's like available? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so she was like, she played a little bit hard to get. She'll deny it to this day. She played a little bit hard to get. And yes, Mama does know best.
She does, man. Yeah. How do you argue that?
And so yeah, that was it, man. That was all she wrote. But if she was willing to deal with me, like not even like speaking to her for 2 years and then coming back and us like reconnecting, like, man, like we had just gone on a date, like, last Friday. I was like, you get it.
That's awesome. No, I love hearing those stories just because I got married so late in life, but Not late to me, just late in the grand scheme of things, I guess, in everybody else's perception.
Right. It's
But
just don't compare.
same thing. You knew, and this is one that I couldn't, wait to, I guess we're mama's boys, right? But like I couldn't wait to really introduce this one to my mom, and she knew right away. My mom was like, "Yep, okay, that's it. You're done now."
That's
So
right.
like, she knew before I even knew. So, well, look, let's wind this down. I mean, in terms of other passions, what kind of other passions do you have? Obviously the TCK thing, obviously the business thing, and all that. But what
Yep.
about? I mean, soccer, football.
I love soccer.
Any other
I love my family. I love, I really love the fact that I really have a passion about helping others with their health, as well as with like their business, like we talked about, but specifically with their health. Again, I can't stress that anymore about having gone through the pain that I've gone through, and then realizing it couldn't have been like that simple, like things that we're like, oh, that was easy for me to go through.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that are struggling so hard with certain things. There are people that are, losing limbs with diabetes. There are people dying of heart disease. So I'm really passionate about that. And I'm passionate about it, not because of like the negative part, but because of the awesome part that it's like, you can actually live in a really amazing life, eat amazing food. I just got real lucky with my wife, who again, she's an amazing chef, to make all this stuff too. And so we're really passionate about that. And the fact that we get to do it together, right? And that our kids are also benefiting from it. So that's why it's such a kind of easy go-to. And she loves soccer like I do. And so now my son, he was screaming goal today when we were watching Messi score and watching Barcelona play. So that's, I mean, I don't need a lot of other things other than that in life. In the past, it was all about like who had the most coolest things and passions. And man, right now I'm good with just the household.
Well, that's why I love talking to you, because like you, I'm not a very big, even though I've seen the world and been exposed to so many things like you have, I'm not a big materialistic guy. Like I'm a very simplistic person. Like you just give me 3 things and I'm good. I've got my wife, I've got my health, I've got family, I've got, the friends. I guess that's 4 things, but like it's just,
and baseball.
Yeah, baseball, right? But it doesn't take much to really,
Yeah.
keep me grounded and keep me humble, and I appreciate that. That's I think that's one thing about us TCKs, is that we talked about misperceptions earlier. We're not people that need a whole lot of stuff. We've seen the world, we've done so many things, we've been to so many places, but I don't think we're that driven by materialistic things, and I think maybe it is that fact that we didn't have simplicity growing up, right? That maybe it's a little bit comforting that we kind of narrowed down our perspective as we get older. I don't know. That's my take anyway.
Dude, that's it, man. And I think as TCKs, it's just so much more cooler when we finally figure that out.
Yeah.
So if we can help people figure it out a little bit faster, then
Well, that's I love that you brought that up, and you and I have always been the same way. People always ask me, like, why did I spend so much time in education as a teacher, as an administrator, as a medic? I mean, you look at my background. It's my dog's trying to get in the door. By the way, that's why I just turned over there. So, but it's I love that you do the same thing I did. There's something built into me. Maybe it's my parents. Maybe it's just the core of who I am. Maybe it's the TCK thing. But it's that giving back.
yeah,
I've always believed in that. My parents raised my brother and I to do that. We were never better or worse for growing up in someone else's quote country, but it's about giving back. What are you if you don't give back, right? And
right.
I truly believe that to a core. My biggest belief is that. So it's I
Yeah.
love that
Give yourself to something or someone. And it doesn't have to be like giving back doesn't mean like charity necessarily.
No.
Yeah, I just want people to understand that.
It's not a sympathy thing. It's not. I don't mean it that way. I just think that we've been blessed in so many ways. It's just an opportunity to give back.
Right. Yep.
I think that's the mainstay in my brain anyway.
Well, dude, how cool is it where, I mean, now, again, you're influencing these kids, these teenagers, or whatever age you coach too. If you can teach them about giving back now, right? Like, I can't wait to be able to take my son and say, hey, you know what? For your birthday, here's what we're going to do, right? His birthday is a week before Christmas. Mm-hmm. For your birthday here, why don't we try this? We're going to get you some gifts, and then we're going to have, these other gifts that we can give. And now for your birthday, you can give other people gifts that they've never had or never would have had a chance to have, and then see the transformation in his heart and his mind, in his upbringing. we have the ability to pass that on, right? And that's truly for me like what a legacy is, right? Legacy isn't how much money I leave behind or what name is on a building or a wing of a hospital. It's what kind of generational change can we have, whether it's family or not, and whether they ever know who you are or not, right? That's legacy, right? Think of anyone you ever read that's a mentor, that was a coach or a trainer who'd never heard of your name, yet they've affected you. Dude, that's legacy, right?
I love it. I love it, man.
Yeah.
It's thank you. Yeah. Listen, you motivated the hell out of me, but I can't let you leave without asking you I don't know if you watch this a bunch or whatnot, but I always ask the guests the same 3 questions in these. The first one is this, and let's see what you have to say here. But what is something people don't know about you? Did we hit on that yet? I don't think we did. But what's something maybe we don't know about you?
What don't you know about me? I knew all 46 presidents.
Wow.
And I could rattle them off in order in my 3rd grade class.
I was going to say, do I challenge you now?
Well, based on how many presidents I was, I could tell you how long you could tell how long it was.
That's impressive. I don't think I could do that right now. No,
I don't know why I thought of that, dude, but
for many years. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah.
That's sad. I'm sorry.
What about having a long, if you had the chance or the opportunity to just sit down on a park bench, stare out, have an hour-long deep conversation with anybody, whether they're still with us or not with us, or someone you personally know or someone that you've always wanted to know, who would that be with and why?
That is a great question. And I did think about that a little bit. Let me give you an athlete.
Okay.
Lionel Messi, right?
Okay.
So that's one.
That's saying okay to that. Matt agrees with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is. And then second would be a long lost mentor called Jim Rohn, Rohn.
Okay.
Jim, Rohn. Jim Rohn, he's incredible. He was a business philosopher, and he just spoke, because I listen to those audios all the time. He's got great books. He's probably responsible for about 50% of the business quotes that you see out there and the life kind of philosophy quotes, but he gets misquoted all the time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's kind of the guy that you wish, and I say this, but for me, I wish I had a grandfather like him, because I never met my father or grandfather, right. That spoke like this, right? Had this kind of wisdom, had that voice where you were just like, you just wanted to hang on to every word, and you walk away like feeling smarter, better, stronger, more influential because of. So yeah,
that's great. I'll have to do a little research on him, see what I can find out. So
yeah, absolutely.
The last one, we talked about the travel bug, and you talked about more that you wanted to, you enjoy it more as a business side of things. It's funny because I do tell people this, like, I feel maybe it's the way we were raised, but I feel more comfortable and just relaxed, and I can shut my brain off on airplanes where most people are so timid and don't want to fly. Man. So I love it.
Love flights.
But what about travel wise? Is there still a place or a country that you still like to get to?
Yeah, I'd love to get to, I keep saying Spain. I mean, I've been there, I lived there. I just love it. But it's interesting, as life continues to evolve, mm-hmm. and like this whole new lifestyle, like diet lifestyle in my life, that's changed everything else for me. Yeah. I think that my agenda for wanting to go to Spain might now be a little bit different. Okay. Right. So thinking food, thinking drink, thinking all these other reasons. Listen, I'd still love to go to watch a game there. I'd still love to go to see family there, but now I don't know that it's necessarily all in the same order anymore. So that one's still up in the air. Can I just get a flight voucher? Sure. And maybe just have that be my answer for now. That's and fun. I'll decide when we get to the airport.
I love it. That works, man. Well, listen,
maybe I'll just book a flight out to Utah, man. And
yeah, we'll hang. We'll hang out. It's a great place in the summer. It's a great place in the winter, obviously.
Heard amazing things. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous state. I'm an Idaho boy at heart. I'm from Idaho originally, but in terms of a second.
Oh wait, did I said Utah, didn't I?
Oh, you did. You're right. You're right. Because I do live in Utah right now.
Okay. All right.
But I just meant that I'm from Idaho originally, which is just a state above us. So I love Idaho. I will always praise my home state, so to speak. But I'm also an Illinois guy, so here we go. We could go on and on again. Like, where are we from? Utah is my home base, and it's been
There
for
you
many
go.
years. It's a gorgeous state, lots to do here too.
Well, you're welcome to my home base anytime you want, man.
I love the East Coast. Yeah, man. I love it. I need to get, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the longest I've ever gone without having a plane ticket or a reservation somewhere. So
Right. I got buddies that own their own businesses now, and they're literally taking a road show.
Yeah.
And they're running their business, but they're driving across country and like, recording it all and just documenting everything. It's pretty cool.
I love that. That sounds awesome to me. Like that's the kind of thing that I'd give anything to do right now. So well, listen, I'm not going to keep you long. I know you've got family commitments and things like that. This has been a treat, man. I knew it was going to be good. I wasn't even worried about that, but like, you took it to a whole nother level, and I love the conversations. I've yet to have a bad guest, obviously, but like the ones that make me think, and we hang up, and then like an hour from now, I'll still be thinking about our conversation. Those are the ones that really hit home to me. And this is definitely going to be one of those. You are a true motivator. You are someone who speaks for all of us TCKs, and I can't thank you enough for just being so transparent, because I know it's not always easy with our backgrounds, but just keep doing what you're doing, man. You are influencing a lot of people. I even look at you as a mentor right now, and I can't wait to talk to you and do the business thing with you and all that stuff.
Brother. Yeah, man. Hey, listen, and you keep doing this too. It's been a pleasure. It's crazy, right? To look up and see that, an hour and 45 minutes has just flown by. So,
right. Yeah.
I would have almost been landing in Utah by now if I was.
There you go, right? Oh, well, like I said, you're always welcome here. We've got a spare room. You bring your wife, bring your kids, and all that stuff. But
right on.
Yeah, the best compliment I can give you is that I feel like this isn't our first time ever really truly talking. It's really not, but in this depth, it is.
Right on, man. Well, likewise. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
We could keep talking, but I just want to let you know, thank you for doing this, man. And you'll be back. I plan on doing this a lot. We're going to finish out this season 1, as I like to say. We have 4 more of these, and then I'm going to take a little break, get my Sundays back for about a month or so, and then we'll go from there. But you're an inspiration, man. Not only just the diabetic side of things, but just your attitude in life. And I appreciate you speaking your mind and speaking from your heart more than anything. So I appreciate that, man.
Love it, man. We'll appreciate you right back. And God bless you, man. I hope it served you.
Absolutely. Always. But I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast right now, but stick around, buddy. Let's don't click up just yet. But the rest of you that are watching, I hope you got as much out of this as I did. This was a treat. They're always a treat. Every time I do these, they're a treat. But sometimes, like I said, there's things that are said that really hit home, and this was definitely a conversation that big time hit home. And Pablo, thank you for doing this. Please check out Pablo's all his connections if you need to reach out to him. I think I listed everything.
BenThere.org.
There you go. It's going to be posted as soon as we're done with this. So I'll post it on BenThere.org just after this. But if you're watching on Facebook, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. If you're watching after the fact, thank you. But keep watching. We have about 4 more left. Next week is going to be wild. It's going to be. This is a little different episode. My buddy, my best friend from Boise, I should say, is going to be on this. He's not a TCK. He's just someone that we have an interesting story to tell. Let's just put it that way. So he's a good dude. Jason Geisler is going to be on this next week. So looking forward to it. It's going to be kind of a step away from the script, so to speak, of these TCK things, but everybody's got a story. That's what this show's about, and I can't wait to talk to him about that. So, Pablo, before you go, I just want to make sure you see this. There's the man, right? Calvin, the only reason we're doing it, we're having this conversation right now is because of you, buddy. So we appreciate you more than anything. So just want to give a quick shout out to Calvin.
Love it, man. That's awesome. Calvin.
On that note, Pablo, brother, thank you. All right, you take care. Say hi to the wife and the kids, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm proud of you.
You got it, man. Love you guys. Right back at you.
We'll talk to you guys next week.